this thing on? You guys ready? You ready? All right, here we go. We're going to talk about Pinewood Derby Speed. This is episode 3. We've already talked about my evolution of cars, different designs. We talked about axles. We talked about wheels. Talked about shaping our blocks, cutting axle grooves. Today we're going to talk about weight. Your friend or your enemy, depending upon how you want to look at it, when you're building a Pinewood Derby car, is a scale. A good scale is important because you don't want any surprises on race day. We're going to talk about surprises on race day in our final segment, but that's not where we're at today. So you need a scale that's going to measure in ounces, or I don't know, suppose you're somewhere with the metric system, it's something to measure the metric system, but you really need the decimal places. You want to go to 1 or 2 decimal places because accuracy when it comes to the weights, it's crucial. It is absolutely crucial because ultimately what wins the races is the weight. I mean, it's a combination of slightly aerodynamics, but friction, weight, lube on the wheels. It's a combination, but if you're not at your max weight, forget it. You are not going to win a race if you're not at the max weight. I challenge anybody out there to show me that they can build a winning car that is not at max weight. Winning legal car that isn't at the max weight. So for any organization I've been involved in, the max weight is 5 ounces. You need to be at 5 ounces. It's, bar none, it is crucial to be at 5 ounces. So we talked about earlier, our goal when we're building our fastest cars that we build is our wood weighing 1/2 ounce. You can't get around the axles and wheels weighing 1/2 ounce. That's just, it's a given, unless you're in some league that doesn't have rules about the wheels and you can make special wheels or buy special lightweight wheels or something like that. Your axles and wheels are going to weigh 1/2 ounce. So 1/2 and 1/2 is 1. Our car can weigh a maximum of 5 ounces. So you're talking about putting another 4 ounces of weight on your car. You can do it lots of different ways. Now, one thing to consider, talk about in my first episode, talked about old school. We used lead. We drilled holes. We poured hot molten lead into the wood. No joke. That's how we used to do it. These days, it's frowned upon. Kids, you shouldn't play with lead. Using lead these days, the BSA in their rules, they say if you use lead, such as a sinker, fishing weight, something like that, that it has to be painted. And they really frown on using lead to begin with, whether it's painted or not. So you really need to keep that in mind. And I think if you showed up with a car with holes drilled in it with lead poured in, molten lead, I think that would be highly, highly frowned upon. But you just got to use your brain when it comes to using your type of weight, because lead is a very effective weight. But I've also seen a winning car that had a bolt. It had a big fat steel bolt, probably 5/8 maybe, and it was just drilled through the middle of the car, and it had a nut on the top and the bolt head on the bottom, and that's what they used for their weight on their car, and it was fast. It was a really fast car. So it really depends on what you use. There's tungsten that they sell, very expensive. The different types of weight, I've used BBs. This was a winning car. This car dominated, and it had steel BBs as the weight. Nothing fancy there. We've used a lot of these tube weights because they're easy to work with. You can cut them with a pocket knife. You can use them for decoration. The fire truck car, they were used as the hoses. Looked like hoses on this car. Or we've used steel weights for cars. These are steel. No, these are iron. FE stands for iron. So we used iron weights, and these were peel and stick. Got them at the auto parts store. They're nice and flat. They recessed right into here. This car weighs exactly 5 ounces when it was done. Our most recent evolution of cars, though, we did use the tried and true. We used fishing sinkers. So we've got here, these were, I believe these were 1.5 ounces or so fishing sinkers, maybe not quite 2 ounces. And all we did with these was we put them on the concrete floor, used a big mallet, and we smacked them with a hammer to flatten them out to give us a gluing surface. We glued them in place with a hot glue gun, and then we start tinkering with our weight from there. Similarly to these, block of wood weighs 1/2 ounce, axles and wheels weigh 1/2 ounce. Got 2-ounce fishing sinkers, smacked them with a big mallet on a cement floor, made flat spots on them so they could glue down, glued them down with a hot glue gun, and we've got a pretty close to 5-ounce car that starts needing some tweaking. We talked earlier in a previous episode about your paint, your decorations on your car, any stickers, anything like that. That's all got weight to it. You need to take that into account. You don't want to start weighing your car and getting to a point where it's, oh, okay, I'm at 5 ounces. Oh crap, the kid didn't paint the car yet, and the kid goes and slaps an ounce of paint on the car. Now you're screwed and trying to take weight out and figure out what you're going to do to get your car down to weight. This one, heck, we used a jig on this one, and it was already painted. We didn't need to do anything about that. So this one was just a jig, and that was our weight. And again, I talked earlier, the rules say if you're going to use lead fishing sinkers or any kind of lead, it has to be painted. So this one, these are lead, and we hydro dip the entire car, including the weights. This one, we just spray painted the weights. So you don't want any contact, skin-to-skin contact with lead. They can actually disqualify your car for that. You don't want that. And while we're talking about weight, there's all different ways to adhere it. You could use some double-sided tape. You could use glue. You could use nails, screws, hot glue gun. That's my favorite. Just crank out the hot glue gun. Works great. You can glue your weights down. But we used before the peel and stick ones. They already have adhesive built into them, so nothing to it. They just pop into place. Easy to go. Talked about the illegal car that had the loose BBs. That didn't fly, so in that case, because it was illegal, we drilled holes in it and we held them in place with a hot glue gun. So you can get creative with your weights. You can use them as decoration. You can adhere them in a lot of different ways. Now, weight placement is very, very, very important. You ultimately, if you're building a fast car instead of a car for looks, we talked about that earlier, you want your weight, pretty much almost all of your weight in this car. Like if I tried to balance it, the center of balance on this car would be almost all the way at the back. There, it's pretty much balancing. You want your weight to be over top of or just in front of your back wheels. You don't want it behind your back wheels. You don't want a car that's going to be, so this is an older car that we built, and if you had all your weight loaded in the back, your car would be unstable, and it'd be kind of trying to do a wheelie down the track, and your wheels would be shimmying up front because it would be an unstable car. We've said it before, a stable car is a fast car. So you want your car to be stable. Putting your weight on top of or just in front of your rear axles is going to make your car stable. It's going to make it for a fast car. You also, it's important that when you're talking about potential energy, so potential energy is energy that hasn't been used yet versus the kinetic energy, which is your energy in motion. So you get your weight at the start of the race, up high at the track, up against the starting gate. You get your weight up high, and at the back of the car, that's giving you more potential energy to transfer into kinetic energy than somebody who has their weight loaded at the front of the car down low. It's just might not make a huge difference, but a couple milliseconds, it starts to add up into a winning car versus a non-winning car. And I've actually toyed with the idea, but I never built a car yet, where I thought about putting my weight up high, almost like a spoiler on the back of the car, where I think your car, the limit was maybe 3 or 4 inches tall. And I thought about building some kind of structure on the car, whether it be with like sticks or some kind of rods or something, to get my weight up nice and high and just experiment with that. That I had way more potential energy because the weight was up so high. I just figured, I was worried that it would make it unstable as it came down the track. That was going to be one of my designs if we'd ever built more cars, and unfortunately I think I'm retired from Pinewood Derby racing, so I've never done that design. But to recap, we want your weight on top of your rear axles or just in front of them at the back of the car, and that's going to make your car really, really stable. Start talking about weight and fine tuning and how important it is to be at 5 ounces. So you've got your scale and you start measuring your car. So this car actually is exactly 5 ounces. This car, it hasn't been touched since the day it was raced. It's exactly 5 ounces. But to get there, look, I had to drill holes out of the wood to lighten it up. And you're talking sawdust worth of wood to get down to that point. Now, one of my favorite techniques is when you're getting close on weight, is you want to go overweight. So I say try to get it to like 5.1 ounces, especially when you're measuring at home on your own scale. You don't know how the official scale at the race is going to be calibrated. So it's better to be a little heavy and then come down at the race than to be light and trying to make it up. So my favorite technique for dealing with weight, and this is, if you get nothing else out of these tips, this is probably my biggest tip of all these videos, is fine tuning your weight. And the way we've done that, all right, so fine tuning our weight, we use thumbtacks. And what we do is we'll get our car overweight. We'll get it to like 5.1, and we'll have several thumbtacks in the bottom of our car. There's thumbtacks. We're gonna have thumbtacks in the bottom of our car or in the back, wherever they're gonna be on your car. And then you wanna get it so it's like a little bit overweight, because there's a difference between 5.099999 and 4.99999. There's a weight difference in there. And that weight difference can make the difference in winning and losing. So you want to get it to the point where when you lightly, and I mean lightly, set it on the scale, the official scale at the race, that it just barely reads that 5.0, that you are scraping by to get down to that point. So if your car is overweight and you're at home, you got a problem with that, can't go wrong with a drill and a drill bit. Checking out some holes. We had to do that on several of our cars to get them down to weight. But then we're talking about fine tuning, and we're going to be putting thumbtacks in our cars. I got some thumbtacks in the back of this one, in the side of this one, in the bottom of this one. And we're going to get the car purposely overweight. Then we're going to take a knife or screwdriver or something when we're weighing in at the track, and we're going to start popping them out one thumbtack at a time. Pop out a thumbtack, set it on the scale. Oh, still overweight. Pop out a thumbtack, set it on the scale till we just get it down to that 5.0. You get it down so you're just one thumbtack underneath the 5.0. You're the max. I'm talking, you set that car down and set one thumbtack on top of it and it goes over. That's how precise you need to be with your weight to get your car to be as fast as it can possibly be. All right, that is our discussion on weight. Tune in for our final segment on race day prep and technique, and we'll wrap this thing up. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. If you like our content, give us a like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for tuning in to our 3rd edition of Pinewood Derby Car Speed.